Hello, welcome back to our Tutorial Tuesdays. Today we are talking about pigeon pose. This month we will be working with some hip openers, and pigeon pose is a very common pose in a lot of our warm-ups for vinyasa, as it really opens up through the hip flexors, the glutes. It spreads open the chest, preparing us for back bends, and opens up the back, preparing us for forward bends. So we are going to look at our alignment first. So if you want to move along with me, if you're warmed up, if not, we can just pay attention and practice these later. I will link some classes here and below that you can practice these with me. So choosing one leg to start, our alignment is, I'm going to say my left knee is bent. So our one leg is bent in front. We want to square the hips. That is our most important focus here. Our hips are square to the front. Our pelvis is sinking down into the mat. We're really grounding and flexing, squeezing through the glutes because we're balancing on this leg in this center area. So we're really grounding down through the foot and this left leg to lift ourselves and keep ourselves up and not twist around onto our left leg. So our right leg is straight back behind us, trying not to sickle the foot there. Square. We can plant the fingertips to help us lift the chest higher. This is where we come into our forward and backward bending. This is a great heart opener. It features in a lot of heart opening flows. This will open up more of the heart and the back, but if we either take our hands away and we have to use our strength and control to really keep us balanced here, we go more into the glutes and the hip flexor. So if we take our chest a little bit forward over this left leg, we can feel the shift happening and we feel a deeper sensation in the glutes and a bigger stretch in the front of the thigh. And that happens as well if we come down onto the forearms. And if we release into sleeping swan, arms fully extended, we really open up through the hips. Now, if this pose is not accessible to you, there are a few different reasons why. So one, if we can't get into the expression anything like half pigeon pose, we can completely modify it by bending our legs and doing something different. So if our left leg is in front, our goal is to have our shin parallel to the top of the mat, our hip square, leg behind. We can keep this leg here, but shift your weight onto the left bum, keeping this leg right here. You can also bring the foot closer into the pelvis if that feels better. But then we bend this back leg and sweep it behind us, pulling this foot back. So we want to, it's kind of like a Z sit here, and this will feel different in every body. So we play with the angle of our legs, still feeling the opening of the right hip flexor and a deep stretch and strength in the left glute. So we're hitting the same muscles here, just looks a little different. If our hips are too tight, we can always use a block or a bolster or a pillow to put them under the hips to help us reach. So we can place them under the hips here, and again, this will look and feel different on every body, so we have to figure out what feels the best. We just get a little bit of height here so we can get closer to the leg. If our lower back is a little tight or compressed, we can reach the ground closer to us by placing a block bolster pillow underneath the thigh. So whichever leg is bent in front, we'll place our prop right underneath the thigh. Then we situate ourselves here, and we are lifted but more accessible to the ground. So play with some of these modifications if we're not super accessible into pigeon pose. And in our practice, we may need to use the block just to open ourselves up a little bit more, and then we can transition down into pigeon pose. Maybe some days we need a block, maybe some days we don't. It's a give and a take. You just feel what you feel. You take what you need. I don't know, with the Godfather. And if none of those variations or modifications work for you, we can always come down onto the back and modify this way, placing the ankle over the knee, and then lifting both knees into the chest. We want to make sure we keep both feet flexed to protect this knee. As we hug the knees into the chest, we'll be getting the same targeted areas that we would if we were in traditional half pigeon pose. This deep hip opening posture can help release negative emotions, some stuck energy. We all know, we've all heard that we store a lot of emotions deep in our hips. So as we settle in and use our breath to deepen in this pose, we do release a lot of stuck energy. I myself have cried numerous times in pigeon pose, just found myself crying, just releasing what I didn't even know I needed to get out. This is also a very big heart opener, and we release stress and mental tension with the conjunction of the hip and heart opener. Is a beautiful combination. This pose also can relieve some lower back chronic pain if it is caused by prolonged sitting or slouching over the computer. It compresses the spine of our lower back, and this posture helps open up and find length in the lower back. So we release tension on the spine and wiggle it all out. When dealing with pigeon pose, we are talking about the the sacral chakra, the solar plexus, and the heart chakra. So all of these combined in this posture, in particular, the opening of the hips helps with urinary disorders and with menstruation symptoms. So ladies, this one's for you. Now let's get to the fun part, shall we? There are so many ways that we can play with this posture and make it super, super fun in our practice. Starting in traditional pigeon pose, we can keep the fingers on the mat, lifting the chest. We can come into sleeping swan on the forearms or with the arms extended. We can reach the arms behind the back, interlace the fingers, and open the chest even more. We can place the right hand in front, reach the left back, and find a big, beautiful twist. To open up the hip flexor even more, we can tuck the back toes, lifting the knee, really reaching the heel back, and this opens up the hip flexor tremendously. Planting the right hand down, we can take the left, scoop it underneath the right, and find a little thread the needle revolved variation. We can take our hands to heart center and use them to help us twist open. You can reach the right arm back for the ankle, get a little quadricep stretch. We can deepen this into mermaid pose, binding the hands over the head. We can again deepen that and come into the full expression of pigeon pose, which I don't think is in my practice today. I have warmed up and I've practiced this before this class, and it didn't feel good to my body today, so I am not going to force it because this is not what we do in yoga. But if this was in my practice today, both hands would be reaching back and my foot would basically be touching my head, but it doesn't feel good for my back today, so I'm skipping that one. Some of those variations can get a little bit intense, so I would definitely recommend, just even for traditional pigeon pose, take a few warm-up poses before. Bound angle, cat-cow for the spine. Useful to warm up the hamstrings, as this tends to pull on the lower back. And we of course want to make sure we're deeply opening up the hips, so we can use lizard or winged dragon, really making sure we're opening up the hips, the inner groins. And a lot of times I like to place my pigeon pose with cow face pose. So as either a warm-up or in conjunction together, pigeon pose, sweep the back leg around, cross it over, and get a nice big glute stretch on the glute. Then we can crisscross, come to the other side. Now the other leg is on top. Beautiful. Get a nice little glute stretch. And then we can swing that leg back and come into pigeon pose on this side. So if we want to warm up using pigeon pose, that is a lot of times what I do. Or we can oscillate and flow deeper with every exhale. Pigeon pose is such a fun hip opening posture, and there are so many great variations and ways to play around and mix it up in your practice. If you have any suggestions for future hip opening postures that you would like to learn a little bit more about, we can dive into those together next Tuesday. So leave those below, and I look forward to practicing with you soon.